She made the comparison. She weighed what she had against what she imagined was available somewhere else, and the imagination won. The way imagination always wins when it is competing against reality, because imagination does not have to account for flaws, for patterns, for the specific and unavoidable work that every genuine connection eventually requires. She chose what she imagined, and then she lived inside it, and what she discovered living inside it was not what the imagination had promised. Like and subscribe to Stoic Blessing. We show up every day for the man doing the hard work. Let's get into it. The first thing to understand is the psychology behind why people believe another person will make them happier, because understanding this mechanism clearly is what allows you to receive what happened without absorbing it as a verdict on your worth. The belief that another person will produce a happiness that the current connection cannot is almost never based on an accurate assessment of the other person. It is based on the specific seductive distortion that novelty produces in the human mind. The new person does not carry the weight of history. They do not yet have patterns that have been observed and catalogued. They have not yet had the opportunity to reveal the specific ways in which they are ordinary, difficult, or limited. They exist in the mind of the person comparing as a projection, assembled from early impressions, from the specific qualities that are most visible in the early stages of connection, from the imagination of what intimacy with them might feel like, rather than the knowledge of what it actually is. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the discipline of distinguishing between the impression and the reality, between what a thing appears to be in the story the mind constructs about it, and what it actually is when examined with honest, clear-eyed attention. The new person was an impression, a compelling, novelty-amplified, imagination-enhanced impression. And impressions, however vivid, cannot sustain themselves indefinitely against the reality they are covering. The reality always eventually emerges. The patterns always surface. The specific work that every genuine connection requires always presents itself. And the happiness that was projected onto the new person, the happiness that was supposed to arrive simply by virtue of the new person's presence, reveals itself to be what it always was. Not a feature of the new person, but a story told about them by a mind that had confused novelty with depth. Comment below, novelty isn't depth. If you understand that what she chased was always a projection, not a person. Here is what she discovered in the weeks and months following the choice. The specific, accumulating, impossible to argue with discoveries that the contrast effect delivers to anyone who trades something real for something imagined. The first discovery is that the new person has patterns too. Different patterns, perhaps, new patterns certainly, but patterns, the specific, recurring human behaviors that every person carries and that only become visible after sufficient time and sufficient familiarity, have stripped away the novelty. The second discovery is that happiness, in the genuine and lasting sense, was never a product of the person she was with. It was always a product of her own inner life, her own relationship with herself, her own capacity to be present and engaged and at peace in her own existence. Neither the previous connection nor the new one could produce that capacity for her. It could only ever come from within. And the new connection, however charming and however novel, cannot manufacture what the previous one also could not manufacture: the specific, internal, self-generated quality of genuine contentment. Epictetus taught about this with the directness of someone who had learned it through the hardest possible personal experience. He wrote that the man or woman who runs from circumstance to circumstance, looking for the happiness that the current circumstance fails to provide, will not find it in any circumstance, because happiness, in the Stoic understanding, is not circumstantial. It is not the product of being in the right relationship, the right city, the right job, the right life. It is the product of a specific, cultivated, daily practiced orientation toward your own existence. The orientation of a person who has done the inner work, who has examined their values and aligned their choices with them, who has built a genuine inner life rather than requiring external conditions to be exactly right before allowing themselves to be okay. She did not find that orientation in the new connection. She was never going to find it there, and the dawning recognition of that fact, however long it takes to arrive, is one of the most important and most uncomfortable pieces of self-knowledge a person can receive. Comment below, happiness was never his to give, if you understand that what she was looking for was never something another person could provide. Now the Stoic demand, the most important one this video makes, and the one that separates the man who genuinely grows from this experience from the man who simply observes it with satisfaction. You cannot let her discovery that the new person did not make her happier become the validation your own sense of worth has been waiting for. You cannot make her eventual dissatisfaction with the choice the confirmation that you were right all along. Because if her disappointment is what restores your sense of worth, if the proof that the new person failed to deliver what was promised is what makes you feel okay about yourself, then your sense of worth was never truly yours. It was always on loan from her assessment. And worth that is on loan from someone's assessment is still subject to that assessment's fluctuations. The Stoic work requires the complete and permanent relocation of your worth from the variable territory of her judgments to the solid ground of your own daily choices and your own character. Marcus Aurelius was unambiguous about this. He did not measure the quality of his governance by whether Rome was grateful for it. He did not measure his philosophical practice by whether it was recognized and celebrated. He measured it by a single, entirely internal standard. Did he act today in accordance with the man he had decided to be? That question, answered honestly and acted on consistently, was sufficient. Not because external recognition was worthless, because a worth that requires external recognition to remain intact is a worth that can always be destabilized by the withdrawal of that recognition. The man whose worth is built on the internal standard does not need her disappointment with the new person to feel good about himself. He already feels good about himself, and that is a completely different and completely superior foundation for everything that follows. Comment below. My worth was never hers to assign if you've relocated your sense of value somewhere no one else can reach it. Let's talk about what her choice revealed about the dynamic that preceded it, because there is an honest accounting here that most men avoid because it is uncomfortable, and avoiding it is what causes the same dynamic to be recreated in the next connection. Her belief that another man would make her happier was not formed in a vacuum. It was formed inside the specific context of the connection you had, inside the specific atmosphere of that relationship, its specific patterns, its specific gaps, and its specific strengths. And an honest examination of what that context actually was. Not the comfortable version, not the defensive version, but the honest one, is one of the most valuable things this experience can produce. Not to assign blame, to generate understanding. Because understanding what was actually happening in the dynamic is the specific practical knowledge that changes how you show up in the next one. Seneca wrote about the importance of honest self-examination after difficult experiences. Not the harsh, self-punishing kind that produces shame rather than growth, but the clear-eyed, compassionate, genuinely curious kind that asks, what was I contributing to this? Not, what did she do wrong? What was I contributing? Was there a way I was showing up, or not showing up, that was creating the specific gaps that made the imagination of someone else seem appealing? Was there a way I was investing in her that I was not investing in myself, creating an imbalance that was visible in my own diminishment over time? Was there a way I was prioritizing her happiness over my own genuine self-expression, producing the specific, low-grade inauthenticity that people always feel eventually, even when they cannot name it? These questions are not comfortable. They are precisely as valuable as they are uncomfortable. And the man who asks them with genuine honesty and genuine curiosity, not to beat himself up but to learn, is the man who takes genuinely new information into his next connection rather than the same old patterns wearing slightly different clothes. Comment below, I did the honest accounting, if you've looked at your own contribution without flinching and used it to grow. Here is what the Stoic philosophy has to say about the specific situation of watching someone discover that the choice they made did not produce what they expected. And this is where the philosophy becomes most demanding and most clarifying at the same time. The Stoic response to her discovery is not satisfaction. It is not the quiet pleasure of being proven right. It is not the monitoring of her disappointment for signs that it will eventually produce a return to you. All of those responses are variations of the same fundamental error, the error of making her experience the primary variable in your own internal state. Her disappointment is hers. It belongs to her. It is the product of her choices, her psychology, her specific journey toward the self-knowledge that this experience is delivering, and your response to it, whatever it is entirely your own business and should be entirely about you, not about what it means for the possibility of reconciliation, not about what it confirms about your worth, about what kind of man you choose to be in the face of information that your ego would very much like to use as ammunition. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the specific virtue of responding to others' difficulties, even the difficulties produced by their own poor choices, with something closer to compassion than to satisfaction. Not because they deserve your compassion or because the difficulty is not of their own making. Because the man who takes satisfaction in others' suffering, however justified, is a man who has allowed someone else's story to become the source of his own good feelings. And a man whose good feelings depend on someone else's suffering has given away the same sovereignty that he spent all that time building. The Stoic holds his own ground. He builds his own life. He feels his own feelings, including the genuine relief of having his own judgment confirmed. And then he moves forward, not organized around her journey, entirely, completely, unapologetically organized around his own. Comment below, her journey, my path, if you've finally separated what's hers to carry from what's yours to build. Let's address what to do if she comes back, because her discovery that the new person did not make her happier is, in many cases, the prelude to a reach. And that reach deserves a response that is worthy of the work you have done rather than the reactive relief that the work was suppressing. The man who has genuinely built himself in the period following her choice, who has genuinely relocated his worth, genuinely invested in his own life, genuinely arrived at the specific equanimity of someone who is okay either way. That man does not respond to her reach the way the man who was waiting responds. He does not feel the specific relief-soaked rush that immediately dismantles everything he has built and restores the previous dynamic as though her discovery has resolved everything that made the dynamic what it was. He engages, warmly, honestly, from the grounded place, and he asks the only questions that actually matter. Not, is she back? But, what has she actually learned? What has the experience of the new connection and its failure to deliver what was promised actually changed in her understanding of herself and of what she is looking for? Has she done the honest accounting of why the previous connection had the gaps it had? And is she willing to show up differently in ways that are visible and behavioral rather than just verbal and promissory? These are not hostile questions. They are the questions of a man who respects himself enough to require genuine evidence of genuine change, before investing genuinely again. And asking them warmly, clearly, without anger, but with absolute honesty, is not just his right. It is the only approach that gives any potential reconnection a foundation worth building on. Comment below, evidence, not just words, if you've decided that what she learned matters more than the fact that she came back. Here is what you were building in the period when she was discovering that another man would not make her happier. And this is the part of the story that matters more than her discovery, more than whatever she does with it, more than any outcome the situation might produce. You were building the specific, daily, cumulative evidence of your own self-sufficiency, not performing it, building it, through the work that demanded the best of you, through the physical discipline that reminded your body daily of your own agency, through the honest examination of your own values and the consistent alignment of your choices with them, through the solitude that was nourishing rather than numbing, through the gradual, imperfect, genuine accumulation of days in which you chose your own life, fully and without resentment, over the anxious management of hers. And what that building produced, what the specific, daily, imperfect, unglamorous work of showing up for yourself in the period of her absence actually created, is the most important thing this video can point toward. It produced a man whose sense of himself does not require her return to remain intact, whose daily experience of his own worth is not dependent on her eventual realization, whose good mornings are genuinely good because of what he is building and who he is becoming, not because of what she has or has not yet discovered. That man, the one who is genuinely, functionally, warmly okay regardless of how this ends, is the whole point. He is the Stoic destination, not the man who was proven right, the man who stopped needing to be. And the life he is living, built daily in the specific and ordinary and irreplaceable moments of genuine self-investment, is the life that cannot be disrupted by any choice she makes or fails to make. Like and subscribe to Stoic Blessing. Stay grounded, stay whole, stay unbreakable,